Welcome to the Story Truth Mine. When I was in high school, I couldn't have been less interested in dances. Aside from not knowing how to dance, I literally was known as the music hater. So there was no interest for me in prom or formals or any of that. So it's with considerable embarrassment and disappointment that I admit that fantasy novels, and especially those set in the Industrial Revolution, have convinced me that dances may be needed in order to solve the current dating crisis. Dances appear in fantasy novels everywhere from Victorian romance novels to the dark academy genre, to the detailed worlds of fantasy novels like my favorite L.E. Modesett Jr.'s Imager or Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. I'd like to tell you that these dances are just a convenient plot device to mark the passage of time and to spark romance storylines. But the dances seem to fill a vital role in many of the worlds. Industrial revolutions, whether the one in our world or in fantasy worlds, are characterized by mass migration of people from farms where the old jobs were to cities where the new jobs were, right, to the factories. And this urbanization takes people away from traditional means of meeting their significant other, right? They don't remember people from growing up together in their village. They can't turn to their parents or family friends to set them up because they left all of those connections and the people they could have been set up with behind. Culture is still conservative enough that it's generally unacceptable to simply walk up to someone of the opposite sex and ask them out. This is before the sexual revolution and the invention of contraceptives. It wouldn't be appropriate for men to just approach women and ask them on a date. And 4, men and women generally did not work together or engage in hobbies together. So how then are they supposed to meet and marry? Well, that's where the dances and gatherings come in. Here are the key characteristics of these dances. 1, the people attending are vetted. Sometimes they might be vetted by class, wealth, and power. Other times maybe by profession, or maybe just by what high school or college they attend. 2, the events form a community. People don't just attend once, they attend over and over. That means that they have an investment in their reputation, and that encourages them to behave well or risk losing out on the entertainment, fun, romantic leads, and career networking that happened at these dances. And that creates an incentive to behave well, right? You don't ghost someone if their friends control your economic and social future. 3, the dances are affirmatively coded as a place where romantic approaches are acceptable. Asking someone for a dance isn't unusual or untoward or radical. You're at a dance, right? That's the central focus of everyone being there. So men and women didn't have to worry about ruining their reputations by asking one another to dance. 4, the dances enable conversation. We aren't talking about a club or a bar with the volume constantly cranked so high that no one can hear each other. Talking and conversing while dancing is half the point, and then there's time between the dances for more conversing. The dancing facilitates conversation, it doesn't replace it. So the vetted ball fixed all those core problems, and it created couples at a time when the traditional means of meeting had collapsed. Today, traditional means of meeting are also collapsing. I really don't have to tell you, but people consistently report fewer and fewer friends. This both directly prevents a lot of relationships, since many relationships start as friendships, and it eliminates relationships that could have been started by being introduced by common friends. Second, the highest paying jobs are in high cost of living cities, dragging young people away from family and friend networks from high school as they go off to professional jobs. This is, in many ways, the same phenomenon that occurred in the Industrial Revolution with people moving into the cities for factory work. 3, couples are increasingly unlikely to meet at work. Me Too justifiably led to a reduction in people asking each other out at work as employers and society cracked down after decades of abuse and harassment in the workplace. But equally importantly, employment is starting to segregate back out by gender, with women attending college dramatically more often than men. Women earn 60% of bachelor's degrees. And if you filter out the engineers, who are mostly men and are going to be working primarily with, men, that imbalance grows further. So if you're in a college educated job, it's very likely that the young people working in that job are overwhelmingly female. So how many teachers or nurses are going to be able to date a male coworker? The math just doesn't math for them to meet their romantic partners at work. 4, Apps attract people. They drag in users, but they're designed to fail at the task of finding them long-term relationships. A tiny minority of people get the vast majority of matches and are shown to everyone else because people like to click on pretty people. And the app's goal is to keep people on the apps watching their ads and paying for subscriptions, not to show them to people willing and ready to settle down and get married. 5. People have just changed during this internet, AI, social media revolution. Right? We become buried in our phones and our video games. We order off Amazon. We're increasingly homebodies, venturing out only when we have a sort of we've made a deliberate choice to do something that day, and not as a matter of habit. And now walking up and talking to someone isn't the norm. They would have to pull out their earbuds first. So in a way, we've recreated the world at the start of the Industrial Revolution. People have fewer friends, less effective social networks. We're reluctant to approach and ask each other out. So we need an equivalent of the Industrial Revolution's vetted dances. It needs to, first, vet participants, probably less for income and wealth like it was in the past, and more for personality and common interest. 2, it needs to feature many repeat low-stakes interactions and act as a community where people care about their reputations and will behave decently toward one another. 3, it needs to be affirmatively coded as a place where romance is expected and encouraged and not creepy or off-putting. Right? If our fear is that people, can't ask each other out while they're doing a regular hobby or on the street, then our solution needs to be a place where they can ask each other out and where people are not going to be offended if they're asked to dance. 4, it needs to be conducive to conversation and getting to know each other. So please help build these events. It could be at a small scale with a predominantly male hobby group meeting up with a predominantly female hobby group once or twice a month. It can be a sport or game that has an intramural, uh, um, you know, singles night, or maybe it's a literal vetted dance, just like in these novels that I've read. I really hope not. Learning to dance sounds like a betrayal of my former self. But I also don't want tons of people not to have the chance to get married and have kids because they never met and got to know their spouse in this strange new world we live in. And we didn't replace those old ways of meeting your spouse with a new institution. I hope you have enjoyed your time in the Story Truth Mine. You are welcome back anytime.